Hi, I'm Ashton, and today, about a week ago, I hit my 3 years on testosterone mark, which is wild. Um, Before I get into it and just kind of do the same process as I do in all my other hormone update videos, I do want to say a few things about the language that I prefer that you address me with. Typically, when I do hormone update videos, people watch it that don't normally watch me, right? Because people like watching trans people transition. But yeah, when I make testosterone update videos, people generally assume that I'm a binary trans man. I want to make it clear that I am a trans man, but I am also non-binary, and I don't consider myself FTM. Please don't use FTM for me. I don't like it. My pronouns are he and they. If you want to know more about my gender, I have a whole video on that, and I will link it in a card if I remember to. I'm also considering doing a video soon explaining every word that I use for my gender, because I use a lot of them, and I recently made a list because I love lists. But long story short, in the comments, when you're talking about me, please don't call me an FTM or FTM. Don't call me a transsexual. Those are just not words that I identify with or like to use for myself, and I would not like you to use them for me either. Thank you. Just public service announcement before I get started. Other public service announcements, which you probably don't know if you don't follow me on Twitter, is that I added demi-boy, demi-girl, and demi-gender pride pansies to my store, which you can always find linked in the description, and sometimes, depending on your device, scrolling under the video. But I added each of them in 2 designs, so it took me a while because I had to, adjust a bunch of different things. But long story short, all the demi-gender pride flags are now up on my store, so you can find them. And they're good, I think. At least I really like them. I want a demi-boy one for myself. But with those couple things out of the way, I'm going to just go through a list that I've pulled up on my computer about the, effects of masculinizing HRT, which is testosterone. But first, I do want to talk a little bit about my history with testosterone in the past 3 years that I've been on it. So I take testosterone as an injection, and I've been injecting myself for 3 years now, which is a bit weird. So for the first year or so, I did IM injections, or intramuscular, which is injections that go straight to your muscle. For the past 2 years-ish, I've been doing sub-Q injections or subcutaneous injections, which don't go all the way into the muscle, they just go into the fat. It's a newer way of injecting testosterone. It's been used in injections forever. But it's a, more recently researched and accepted way of injecting testosterone. I have a video on the differences between the two. I will also link that if I remember to. So for the first year when I was doing IM, I used to do them every other week, and for the past couple years, I've been doing them weekly. On Tuesdays, it's always been on Tuesdays. I started off on a really, really low dose of testosterone because I was 15? I think 15 when I started taking it, so obviously they're not going to put a 15-year-old on a shit ton of hormones. I started off on a really, really low dose and gradually increased over time, but I've been on a steady-ish dose for maybe 6 months now. For the first few years, I was also on and off a couple different types of birth control to try to control my periods, because that was a whole epic and tragic saga. But essentially birth controls all fucked me over, so I am now only on testosterone and not, a good form of birth control. So now I'm not on birth control, just testosterone, which, if you weren't aware, is not a form of birth control. Do not use testosterone as birth control. But yeah, I started off on a pretty small dose, mixed with different types of birth control. Both the types of birth control I tried absolutely wrecked my uterus, and I'm now just on testosterone. Anyways, my dose for the past 6-ish months has been 0.3 milliliters injected subcutaneously weekly at a 200 milligrams per milliliter concentration. I know it's a little bit of medical jargon and some weird measurements, but for other people that are on testosterone, they might want to know how their dose compares, because testosterone works differently for different people, different body types, different sizes, different, hormone systems. It's different for everybody, and really the only thing that you can do for a while is trial and error. So I get my blood tested every 3 months, but now that I'm on a more stable dose, I can actually go to every 6 months, which is really nice, because having my blood tested, I don't care that much. I'm not scared of needles, obviously, but when blood is being drawn, a lot of it, sometimes I just run out of blood, and they have to take it from both arms, which is less fun. So that's my history on T, that's my dose. Been on it for 3 years. Now let's talk about its effects. First one on the list, as always, is increased libido. I've talked before about how I'm not too comfortable talking about libido online, but it has increased. That's a thing that happens on T for a lot of people. I'm demisexual, and that hasn't really changed over the course of me being on T, but my overall libido and desire for sex has increased, and that's pretty normal. It's pretty standard. I expected it, and it didn't really bother me all that much. Redistribution of body fat is an interesting one because it's something that's hard for me to judge because it happens so slowly. I don't have a lot of pictures of my body pre-T because, you know, I was 15, I wasn't doing that. That said, I do think I have a lot less of a waist now. I still have an ass and I still have thighs, but I feel like a lot more of my fat has also gone to my stomach, which has given me less of a waist, which I really do appreciate because, you know, my hips are wide because my bones are wide, and testosterone can't change my bones, but it can change where my fat goes. So that's very nice, very well appreciated. I think that's the only, like, real fat redistribution thing that's happened. But my shoulders have also definitely gotten broader, which is more of a muscle distribution thing, but it's still like a body shape changing thing. So the next one is cessation of ovulation and menstruation. I haven't had a period in like at least a year, which is very nice, and I very much appreciate that. I still do want a hysterectomy, and I have a couple videos on why. I have definitely had some issues with my uterus in the past. I was on a form of birth control that gave me a period for 6 months straight, as in I was bleeding for 6 months straight. I was on another form of birth control that is meant to stop your periods in most people, and it just threw me all out of whack. And it wasn't like constant, but it was on and off constantly and absolutely unpredictable. So I've had issues with that in the past. I don't currently, which is very nice, and I really like that. That's one of my favorite changes of testosterone, is that I don't have to deal with that. But that is also something that can definitely change really quickly, and something that I'm prepared for to change really quickly. I still very much want a hysterectomy, but as of right now, I do not get periods, which is very sexy. The next one is increased musculature. I talked about my shoulders a little bit. I do think that has changed based on testosterone. I think my back maybe also, but I can't really see my back. As for legs, my legs have always been strong, and my core has always been strong because I grew up horseback riding. I'm in an LFIT course right now called like cycling. It's just a spin class. I also bike daily and walk daily because I go to a college with a fairly large campus, and I'll end up walking like 5 to 10 miles a day, and biking about that much as well. I guess testosterone's probably helped my muscles like adjust to that, but I haven't really noticed any major increase. You know, I'm not a bodybuilder. Next on the list is increased sweat, changes in body odor. I've definitely sweated more, but that's like not a recent thing. That's one of the first changes that I noticed actually. I hate sweating and I avoid it at all costs. It's one of my biggest sensory hatreds. Like, I discovered recently a way to word it is, if I'm not in water, I don't want to be wet. I absolutely hate every sensory aspect of being wet if I'm not in water. So that's something that sucks with the sweating. I just try to avoid sweating at all costs, honestly. And I haven't noticed any like changes in body odor, but that's probably not something that you can really tell about yourself a lot of the time, so it's possible. But like, I wear deodorant. I like to think that I'm not an extremely smelly person, so I wouldn't really know. And it's not like a lot of people take testosterone so that they smell worse. Like, that's not usually the goal. Prominence of veins, coarser skin. I have really soft skin. I've always had really soft skin. That said, I do think my hands have changed a little bit. I don't have like super masculine, strong hands, but I think they're definitely like coarser and a bit more rugged than they were when I started. That could be due to testosterone. That could just be due to the fact that I was 15 when I started, so I was a child baby, and now I'm 19, so my skin's still really soft. I don't think that's changed much at all. But again, that's probably also something that changes over time and is harder to tell about yourself, so. Acne, especially in the first few years. I definitely had a lot of acne, maybe in the like 6 months to a year and 6 months margin. It's a bit better now. I probably take care of my skin a lot better now. I still definitely get some. My boyfriend shaved me the other day, and the shaving cream kind of breaks me out a bit. But my forehead definitely isn't as bad as it has been in the past, and neither is like the rest of my face. You can go back to older videos and see how bad my acne is in some of them. It's not like terrible ever, but I did used to get a lot of acne around my chin and my forehead, a little bit more on my cheeks, but mostly chin and forehead is where it was. I don't deal with that as much anymore. I don't really get painful acne. It's just little ones that pop up every now and then I'm like, oh, hey buddy, and then they go away. Alterations in blood lipids, increased red blood cell count. Those aren't really things that I notice about myself. They're in my labs, but I'm not going to pull those up to tell you about my blood chemistry, so we'll just move on. Deepening of the voice, absolutely probably one of my favorite changes, if not my favorite change overall. This is naturally where my speaking voice is, but if I make an effort to speak in my chest, then it does get deeper. But naturally I speak further up in my throat. That said, when I'm in like men's bathrooms or when I feel unsafe, I do generally make an effort to speak more from my chest. And I know if I wanted to pass better, I would probably speak like this all the time. But I know I sound gay. I am gay. It's not an issue. I can pop in a little snippet of my first video or second video or something, just as a comparison.
Hi, I'm Ashton.
My voice has definitely gotten a lot deeper, and I really, really appreciate that. This is just like a testosterone appreciation video. Next on the list is growth of facial and body hair. Yes and yes. So I'll do facial hair first, it's quicker. You can't really see much right now because I shaved like 2 days ago, or my boyfriend shaved me 2 days ago. I don't like shaving, my boyfriend likes shaving. Mutual Aid by Peter Kropotkin. I think in the past 6-ish months, especially considering my upward dose, I've definitely had more facial hair than in the 2 years previous to that. I get like dark brown, almost visibly blackish hair along my sideburn and a ton like under my chin on my neck area, a little bit on my chin, a little bit above my lip, and then everything else is just very peach fuzzy. It's kind of annoying because my ideal facial hair situation is like being able to shave and the next day or like 2 days after it, having enough scruff for it to be like visible so that I could wear lipstick and like makeup and still be gendered as a male because of the like visible and obvious facial hair. That would be ideal. Unfortunately, that probably won't happen for a while, but I have my hopes up. I've been gaining a little bit of facial hair since my dose upped, so... Oh, also for, I guess, facial hair, my eyebrows, I think, have gotten thicker since I started. Again, that might just be because I've like grown up normally as a person and not because of testosterone itself, but my guess would be testosterone. As for my hairline, I think it's more of like a male pattern now. It's definitely like squared off more than it used to be, but I don't dislike it. I'm not balding, and I don't think it's changed in probably about a year, because when I shaved my head, this is around where it was. I'm not balding that I've noticed at all, but my hairline has receded to a more typically male hairline. Not something I really care about, not something I really think about. I wear my hair over my forehead anyway most of the time. I have really good balding genes on my mom's side, so I'm counting on those to stick up for me in the long run. As for the rest of my body, I have dark hair on my arms now that I've never had before. It's like very sparse and not really dark, but it is visible, and I never had visible hair on my arms before. I'll do some B-roll of all of this because I'm too lazy to do it right now. I have hair on my tummy that I really, really like, and I've talked about that in most of my testosterone videos. I remember when it first started and being like really, really excited, and it wasn't visible on film, but I was like, I promise I have stomach hair, you guys. It's definitely visible on film right now. Again, I'll be putting in some B-roll. That's probably also one of my favorite changes from T. I've always thought that like the little happy trail part is just really cute, and I'm really glad that I have it now. Before starting testosterone, I had absolutely no visible leg hair, and testosterone did give me that, which I very much like. I'm not like as big of a fan of having leg hair as I am my tummy, but it is very nice during the summer or when I'm wearing like exercise shorts for my outfit class, because it definitely helps me pass. I hate the concept of passing. I've talked about that before millions of times, but for me it is a safety and dysphoria thing. So I do appreciate that when it comes to a social dysphoria level, but like personally I'm not like terribly excited or terribly depressed about having leg hair. Doesn't bother me too much. I also have hair on my ass now, which I didn't before. It's kind of like a light dusting, but yeah, that exists. I also get like random scattered hairs across my shoulders and back. It's really light, it's really occasional. It'll just be like every once in a while, oh look, a black hair. Like, it doesn't bother me, and it's not really noticeable. It's just kind of random and probably very likely because of testosterone. Now the fun one, enlargement of the clitoris. I don't like calling it a clitoris. I call it my dick. I'm trans and I can do what I want. It's my body. Fuck you. I actually have an entire video about bottom growth and like everything that I knew at the time. Bottom growth is definitely something that I've experienced. I don't think it's something I've experienced recently so much as something, it was one of the first things that I noticed, and I think it was probably done within like a year and a half-ish. That is something I experienced. That is something that most people that go on T experience, but it's not necessarily like a, thing that always happens. So it's something to know about. it's something that isn't very well documented because obviously it's genitals and not everyone wants to talk about that, which is totally valid and fine and cool, which is why I'm done, I guess. Oh, face shape. I think my face shape has pretty much stayed the same. My jawline might be a little bit stronger, but I'm also kind of chubby down there. So can't really tell. But, yeah, I think that's it. I think I covered it all. If you have any questions relating to anything that I talked about or anything that I didn't talk about, feel free to ask me. I will answer whatever I possibly can. I'm a pretty open book when it comes to testosterone and transitioning, because I remember before I started T, I looked up every possible resource I could find online. So I totally understand if you're in the same boat, and I would be more than happy to talk to you about it. So that is all. Thank you for listening. Goodbye, comrades. I hope that you're comfortable in your body, and that if you're not, you will get to a place where you can be very, very soon. And I will talk to you later, maybe.